Welcome to Property Mama Adventures in Real Estate, episode 20. It's here where I share all of the goings on in real estate that I have discovered across nearly 3 decades buying and selling real estate. We pull back the curtain and let you know just exactly what goes on. If we've not met before, my name is Wendy Chamberlain. I am a buyer's agent, buyer's advocate here in Melbourne, Australia, and welcome to today's episode. In not surprising news, the shenanigans continues with this purchase that we made for our client, which is on a longer settlement. My clients had some questions which I put to the real estate agent, and the real estate agent is being difficult. That's the word I'm going to use today, difficult. For no other reason than he's really good at being difficult. So I won't bore you with the details there, but yes, the shenanigans continue. What I did want to speak to you today on today's episode was share about an auction that I recently attended for one of my first home buyer clients. Now, auctions, I say auctions are my office. I love going to auctions. But auctions can be very, very stressful for people, which is understandable when you think about the show and the theatre that is the auction. And so when you approach it from that perspective, I find them fun, I find them interesting. The auctioneers are actually funny people. But when you're going along there to buy a property, you've got all of the emotions going on. You've got all the stress, all of the build up. And it's finally the day where you're going to have to basically where the rubber hits the road and you're going to have to bid at auction if you're wanting to buy that property. And so I can understand why people come to us, come to Chamberlain Property Advocates and ask us to bid at auction for them, because if you've never done it before, I suppose you could say it's terrifying. I've had people get in touch where they have said that they have wanted to vomit at the thought of going and bidding at auctions, and that they don't trust what the real estate agents are doing. They don't feel that it's going to sell for what the real estate agent is saying. Hello, underquoting. I've covered quite a few episodes in previous Property Mamas about underquoting, and there's a whole reason behind it. And in one of my episodes, I actually did cover why they underquote. So drop us a line and I can share that particular episode number with you if that's something that's of interest to you. So for auctions, you need to prepare. You need to understand the process. But one thing to remember, the auctioneer are generally very skilled and very experienced at their job. And their job is to get as much money as they can for their client. And their client is the vendor, the seller of the home. The seller of the home has appointed that particular real estate agency, so the agent and the auctioneer. It is their job to get the home sold and get it sold for as much money as possible. So you're coming along and you're the buyer. So who's in your corner working for you? Who is supporting you? And this is the one thing you need to remember. The agent is not your friend. The auctioneer is not your friend. If you are not confident in bidding, if you don't understand the process, if you haven't done it before, if you haven't done it for a long time, you really do need to reach out to us and get that support, because we do this all the time. We know exactly the games that they play. We know all the scripts that they use. We know how they manipulate the situation, because they're very adept at doing that. They're very adept at parting people from more of their money than they intended to spend. Because what happens is emotions get involved, because we're talking about, for most people, this is probably the biggest asset you're ever going to buy. And it is an extraordinary amount of money that you are about to spend to buy your home, because a home is your sanctuary. It is your sense of self. And that is why it is so important to basically have that safe area that you can go home to. It is your home. And they know that and they play on that. And so if you are not at all confident, please reach out, because that is what we're here for you to do. We will bid at auction for you. Now, no two auctions are ever the same. And when people say, oh, what's your strategy? What do you do, etc.? There is no single strategy because no two auctions run the same way. You're always going to have different types of houses, different price points, different vendors, different buyers that might be there, different auctioneers and agents. Everything is different. In every scenario, every single thing is different. And so you turning up as the buyer have to work all this out. What is the likelihood of how it's all going to play out? How would you know? You haven't done it before. So let me share, I bid at auction recently for some gorgeous first home buyer clients. So obviously first home, never done it before. So they had no clue. And I say this about my first home buyer clients. I love my first home buyer clients. Smart people, they've just never done this before. It's like you put me in any other situation that I've not done before, I wouldn't be able to do it. It's the same thing here. And given that you are about to invest so much money, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, you need to get it right. You need to know what you're doing. And so this is what we do with clients. So in the lead up to the auction, I wanted to find out as much information as I could because this is the thing. It's not just about showing up on the day of the auction, putting your hand up and hoping that you're going to win the property. There's more that goes on in the background than that you need to be doing. And so the first thing is, even though it might be quoted in a certain price range, and we've talked about underquoting and being works of fiction, it doesn't matter what it's quoted at. You need to do your due diligence and understand the true value of that property. Where does it sit? Because even though they might have advertised a property and saying it's, I don't know, 9 to 990, just to 900,000, 990,000, just to pick a figure. If that property is actually worth $1.1 million because it's underquoted, you're not going to have a hope. All you're going to have is, well, a wasted Saturday and a whole bunch of disappointment because you never were able to buy that property because you didn't understand the market in which you're buying. You didn't understand the value of that property inside of that market, in that suburb, in that street, and you didn't know what was going to happen, what the process was for the auction taking place. These are all things that you need to understand. So there's an entire due diligence process that must take place before you even consider getting out of your car and going and flicking your hand in the air to try and buy a property. So it's about understanding where the true value of that property lies compared to other properties that have been sold recently and sold in the area. And there's a whole process there of how to research that. And then once you understand that, there's actually what the vendor may or may not be wanting for their property and where they would be prepared to release it, to sell it. And I see time and time again, most vendors want as much as possible. Makes sense because it's your property and you only get one to sell, one of that one. You might have other ones, but one of that property is the only one you get to sell. So you want as much as you can for that property. But I see many vendors run into issues because just because they think their house is worth X doesn't mean it's worth X. If it's worth Y, well, they're going to have a bit of a conundrum there because your home is only worth what the market, what the buyers are telling you it's worth. So then if that's not at the level that you want as a seller, you have to make that decision. Am I prepared to sell it now, release it for the actual price the market is prepared right now, today, to pay, or do I hold on to the property? And that's a personal decision to make for any vendor. And it's going to be influenced by the factors that made them make the decision to put the property on the market in the first place. So if they're selling because they want to downsize because it's all too much now, and it's become unmanageable and they want to move into smaller accommodation, or perhaps they want to move into assisted living or care, well then they may be more motivated to sell at whatever the property is worth on the day, because also chances are they may actually own more of the property because over time they may have paid down any debt on the property. Then conversely, if you've got someone that is selling for other reasons, for example, might be because of separation or divorce, or the home is too small and they're just upgrading to another larger home, well, there are other factors in play there that are going to come into the decision-making process. Certainly, if you're upsizing because your home is too small and you want a bigger home, there is a likelihood that it's going to be a mortgage or there's going to be debt on the property and there'll be a changeover cost, and that's going to factor into the decision making. And it may not be viable for the vendor to sell their home at the price where the market is because they need more money to do their next step. Likewise with separations and divorces, they might need a certain figure in order for each party to go and be able to do the next step. So there's so many factors that are coming in. So ask the agents what the reasons are for the seller selling their property. Now, in my time, I've got various answers to this question. Some agents can be clowns about it and get smart about it, but some are genuine and they will let you know the reasons for the vendor selling the property, which can tie into your decision-making process about where you feel a property may well sell for. So that's one thing, understanding what the property is worth in the current market and where the vendor is and where they may be thinking. Now, having said that, we're dealing with humans. It is emotional. It's really emotional, both on the buying side and the selling side. And I can say that in my time of buying lots of real estate and selling lots of real estate with clients, it is far more emotional on the selling side. My clients who are selling get far, far more emotional. And I think it's because they're leaving all these memories. And there's lots of reasons for selling. It might be a deceased estate and it was the parents' home and it's getting sold. And so that can be hugely emotional for the family. And it could be where you brought your first baby home to and now you're selling that property. So lots of emotions, which is why, things can get on auction day. Things can really, there's a lot going on with things there. So understanding all of that process, but particularly understanding what the true value of the property is going to help you, because come the day of the auctioneer will push anyone on the street. Generally, they're on the street. They'll be working the crowd. I'll say they work the crowd and they'll keep going back. And if you're bidding, and not advocates generally because they know how we work, but if you're just a normal buyer who's bidding to buy a property and you say no, they will say, well, I'll just give you a moment to think about it, and they'll go and work the rest of the crowd, and then they'll come back to you and they'll keep working on you. That's what they do. That's what they're trained to do. And they'll use their scripts like prepared to miss it for 500, which is on top of the 900,000, 1 million, 1.2, 1.5, whatever you're already paying for the property, prepared to miss it for 500. Happy to be out there on Saturday looking again, because they know all of the emotions that go on for a home buyer. It is a frustrating process where you can't find a home. It is frustrating where you keep getting outbid at auction. And you've spent money, you've spent your time, but you've spent money getting building and pest inspections done, you've got contracts reviewed, and yet again, you have missed out. They know this and they will play on it. And they'll say permission to sell, you're prepared to miss out on it. So it's emotional. So as your buyer's agent, buyer's advocate, we don't get emotional about it at all. I do not get emotional about, I love buying real estate. I mean, I love houses. I absolutely adore houses and I love bringing them back to life. But when I'm working with a client to buy a property at an auction, I don't get emotional about it. We have had our conversation prior to things starting. We know exactly what our budget is, where we feel the value of the property is, and what we're prepared to pay. And if it goes over that, it goes over that. And I say to my clients, that was not meant to be your house. And that can be really difficult at that point in time, in the moment. But it's not your house. If you end up not buying that property, it's because you weren't meant to own that property. And so, the other week we bid at auction for a first home buyer client. So I had done my research, having had a conversation with the real estate agent about where we saw the value of the property. Here's what's interesting. The property was advertised with a price guide. And when I spoke to the real estate agent, now I do know this agent, I've had dealings with this agent. The price guide was here but where he saw the value of the property was above the price guide. And he said that to me. He goes, well, what they had it advertised at 600,000 to 660,000. And then in the next breath, he says, but I see the value of the property between 650 and 680. That's where I think the value of the property is. And he shared with me how many buying groups had been through, so he was happy with the numbers, and then also how many buyers he felt would be there on Saturday. Okay, that's fine. But there's your first indication right there, that if the agent is telling you that he sees the value in the home above the guide price that it's advertised at, number one, it's underquoted. Number two, the vendor reserve is likely to be higher as well, because the real estate agent is going to be telling the vendor what their property is worth or what they think the property is worth, and it was underquoted. I'll just laugh again. It's a theme, isn't it? It's a theme. But know the market, know the conversations to have with the real estate agent, know how to analyze the home versus the comparable sales that have happened recently. And if you're not sure how to do any of this, this is what we teach you in my getstartedinproperty.com.au mentoring program, which you can access, doesn't matter where you are in the world. It's online, and it's a program where I share step by step how you can buy a home, and I'll share more about that in a moment. So I've spoken to the agent and I've got an idea of where the property is likely to sell. So I spoke to my client, and we had a particular budget in mind for this home. And I shared what I had as a conversation with the real estate agent. And I said, look, it's likely that the vendor particularly is going to want more than our budget. But you just never know. And so I said, are you happy to go to the auction? I said, yes, we're happy to go to the auction. Okay. So as it turns out, we show up at the auction, and there wasn't a huge crowd there. And I spoke to the real estate agent that I had been having conversations with, and I said, are there any other buyers here? And he said, yeah, there's the one behind me. And there was another buyer that he said was kind of 50-50. But I don't think that person was able to get their finance in time to be able to bid at auction. So auctions are an unconditional sale. If you put your hand up on the day and bid to buy the property, if it's knocked down to you, you're a happy homeowner, because you're going to have to settle on that property. So this other buyer was not in a position yet to have their finance in place. So they didn't turn up. So as it was, there was this other buyer and there was us there. So that's fine. So basically it was going to be a 2-horse race. So the auction starts. The agent does their normal thing, which is tell you all about the area, and they tell you all about the home. I call it the preamble. They just tell you all the things about why you should buy this home and why you should buy in this area, which you should, anybody that's bidding on a home to buy it, you probably already know all these things, but it's part of the process. I guess it's the warming up. And then come the crickets when they call for bids. Look, sometimes some people get started, but like it's kind of 50-50, I suppose. Sometimes people start the bidding off, and usually that's at the bottom or below the guide price. Or sometimes there's nobody and the agent has to start things off. Now, I didn't want to start off things today for this auction, so I, when he called for bids, I just waited. And the other person they did their starting bid of 600,000. Now, I've got in mind that, so it looks like there's only one other bidder, but you never know. They come out of the wood. They literally come out of the woodwork. And people that say they're going to come and bid, don't. People that say they're not going to bid, do. That's the nature of auctions. And so this person bid 600, and the agent was calling for rises of 610. So I was just waiting and no one else was jumping in. And so I started bidding against this other person, and it was going up in $10,000 lots. Now, I understood that, and this comes from experience of auctions, you can judge the speed of an auction based on the bidding increments that are happening and how quickly or how slowly things are moving. So when an auction is going through still at 10,000, so sometimes they start at 20,000, 10,000, then they'll generally drop to fives, 2.5s, down to ones, and this is how auctions generally go. But I knew that the pace the auction was going at, where we were still bidding in $10,000 lots, it was very quickly going to hit the top of the guide price. And so I had to implement some strategies that I know to slow the auction bidding down. And interestingly, after the auction, as my first time buyer clients had brought their parents along, and the mum said, "Oh, that was amazing what you did. I didn't expect, I didn't realize that, didn't even think that you would do that kind of thing." I said, "Well, that's what I do." So it's an entire strategy around bidding at auction and how you can take control of an auction. So I will share exactly what I did in a future episode of Property Mama Adventures in Real Estate, because today I wanted to share a little bit more about my Get Started in Property program. So getstartedinproperty.com.au. I have been buying and selling real estate for nearly 3 decades, and I understand that it can be, we've talked about the emotion, but it can be a very stressful process for people. And if you've not done it before, you just don't even know where to start. And it's not even about making sure you line up all the ducks. You got to know which ducks you got to have there, first of all, to know which ones to line up. And that's the process of it. So what I've done is I've put together a step-by-step follow the bouncing ball mentoring program, which is online, which means that you can access it from anywhere in the world. So from wherever you might be listening in from, you can access my Get Started in Property program. And what I show you is that we have, it's a monthly program, and we drop 2 modules per month, and you complete them in those pockets of your time. So whenever you have availability, you can just work on a new module. And over the whole course of the program, you will gain the confidence so that you too can buy a property. You can buy a home. And this is what it's designed to do. It's designed to take you from point A all the way through to having that confidence to be able to bid at auction, negotiate a purchase, whatever it is for you in where you're located as how homes are sold. You'll have the confidence to finally buy that property. And we've gone through to even the detail that you might think, "Oh, well, I could never ring a real estate agent. I wouldn't know what to say." Well, we've designed the scripts for you. And you can even practice. So you can give an agent a call, you've got the script in front of you, and you can run through the script. And it doesn't matter if you fluff your lines or if you feel like a bit of a silly person while you're asking this question and feeling really awkward, because you've got the script there. And that can give you the confidence. And then you can do it again and again until you understand more about the process. And that's what it's designed to do. So if that's you, if you would love to buy a property, would love to buy a home, but you just don't know what to do, please go to getstartedinproperty.com.au, and we can show you exactly the steps that you need to take in order to buy your home. So thanks for being part of the conversation today. Really love sharing all about real estate. As I said, I see lots of things, and I will circle back around in a future episode and share just what happened with that auction and the strategy. If you have any questions or any suggestions for content, if you've got any burning things that you'd love me to cover from a real estate perspective, please reach out across our socials and get in touch. Be sure to like and comment and share, and you can check out the information we've covered here in the show notes. I love being here with you, and I look forward to speaking to you again very, very soon. Thanks.